Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by decentralized finance educator, investor, and super user, DeFi Dad. In 2017, DeFi Dad fell deep into the crypto rabbit hole after reading Chris Burniske's Cryptoassets and listening to countless episodes of Laura Shin's Unchained podcast. Later that year, he saved up $600 to attend Ethereal San Francisco, and by July 2018, DeFi Dad was working full-time in Ethereum. Today, DeFi Dad works with the Zapper team while creating educational content on his YouTube channel. DeFi Dad, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. One thing I should correct, I failed to mention earlier. So about a month ago, I transitioned working full-time at Zapper to being an advisor of Zapper. So Zapper team is kicking ass, and I was really grateful for the last year working there. But I am now working with Fourth Revolution Capital, where we invest in really like the leading teams that are building for DeFi, NFTs, and Web3. But yeah, I can also answer questions too if you guys have them about Zapper today as well.
Love it. Love it. And so before we get into all things crypto, it's interesting because, you know, you go by the alias DeFi Dad, and I think many get fixated on the DeFi part, but you've also chosen to put Dad as part of that name. Has family life always been something that's important to you?
Yeah. I say it only because, like, I feel like, in a funny way, it is. There's no choice once you have the kid. It's like, okay, now this is a part of my life. I think what's interesting is that I do distinctly remember before we had kids thinking about the fact that children would probably not help my career. Like I was thinking a lot about the fact that it would take up time, of course, to raise children, just to be there present as like a parent, and that would cause me to take a hit. And I will tell everyone, you know, that is considering having children, I was actually sort of delighted by the fact that I feel like since I became a parent, it made me more efficient in how I use my time. Like I used to have all the time in the world to not have to worry about, you know, changing a diaper or putting kids down to sleep. So yeah, I actually feel like from the time that we had our son was born as I was getting into crypto. So he was about a year old, and it was 2017. It was really the fall of 2017. And I would credit the fact that I got into crypto with the time that I had putting him to sleep every night. So I was putting like my son to sleep, and, you know, I'd like rock him to sleep and play music. We'd play a lot of like Beatles music, and he loved it. You know, he's only like 1 going on 2 at that point. And because of that time that I spent in there, it was basically an excuse to sit there in the dark, listening to music, reading about stuff. And I had a friend that told me about Ethereum and Bitcoin, neither of which were you know, as new at that point. And so I wondered whether I was late to the game, but I started, as you mentioned, I read this book by Chris Burniske at the time called Cryptoassets, which everyone should still read. I was listening to podcasts, and then I was starting to read like simple white papers like Ethereum and Bitcoin, and So yeah, that probably is the origin of like this name DeFi Dad. Is I would credit a lot of my origin story to this like luck of the draw that I had this time late at night to learn about crypto.
Nice. And so you learned about crypto. You spent some time researching it on those late nights, or maybe it wasn't too late. Normally you're putting kids down, maybe not.
Yeah. Good point. Actually, yeah, it's funny. It'd be like 7 or 8 o'clock.
Late night.
On a parent's schedule, it was late, but yeah, for most they're like, "What? I normally go to dinner
time,
at 8 o'clock at night." Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
So I was saying that from there, as I understand it, as Wade mentioned, you attended Ethereal San Francisco, and that was kind of the first crypto event that you attended. What was that experience like, and how did that sort of open doors to you, and where did you go from there?
Yeah. So as I was listening to podcasts and like basically starting to get onto Twitter, Twitter was at that point as awesome of a resource as it is today. And I actually heard on a podcast with Laura Shin that they were having this event. And, I would tell anyone, you have to go in person and sort of meet the communities behind cryptocurrencies. Obviously, for me, I'm biased with my origin in Ethereum, but I go to this event. I didn't know anyone, and I learned about all of these projects that were building, basically a new Web3 version of different applications. And so 2017, if you go back to that, you have to remember that this was a time where a lot was being promised and thought of and, planned, but the building would take place for the rest of 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And so it was exciting. I mean, as someone who was new, you were able to like dive into the dreams of all of these like pioneers and think about like all the cool shit that was going to be built. And since I worked in software in the Bay Area, or in the San Francisco Bay Area, anyone who has ever worked with software like Salesforce or Marketo, these are softwares that allow you to build other applications and sort of stack them on top of one another. So they have this element, that we in DeFi, we call it composability. The fact that you can compose other powerful applications by basically piecing together these Legos. And so DeFi wasn't even a thing at the time. It wasn't even a term that had been coined. But early on in Ethereum, it was one of the things that stuck out to me when I thought about there's this global settlement layer. So basically it's one software that we're all going to build on, we can all plug into. And if we're all building on that layer, if you have all these applications that are built, you can imagine that over time you're going to be able to combine those applications. So, if you fast forward and you think about if I build an application where you can lend and borrow, I can also take advantage of applications where you can trade and combine all of the utility into one like larger DeFi protocol or application. So yeah, I mean, I went to this Ethereal event, and then funny enough, about a year later, I got a job with Consensus, worked on a number of projects as a project manager and marketer, which I would call out. That was not my background. Like I had worked in roles tangential to that, but I was willing to work on anything as long as I could work full time on Ethereum, crypto in general. And then I eventually ended up on Ethereal. Funny enough, then about a year and a half after I had gone to an Ethereal, I ended up having the opportunity to work on the event full time, and so I got to basically create these conferences where it was all about storytelling what founders were building. I think the idea was to inspire the next generation of builders, which I would argue was challenging at the time because so little had been released on Ethereum that people could use. It was still about like the promise of what you could do other than like send money and transfer money and hold it in a wallet and things that you could essentially do on most crypto.
That was 2019, right?
2019, yeah. So that was 2019. I did we did an Ethereal New York, one in Tel Aviv, and then finally in I guess if we go back to 2019 this is where there was a transition in the Ethereum community where we started to see what would be called DeFi. These DeFi protocols were coming to market and you could start to actually use them. So Maker had been live for some time. And so people were borrowing against their Ether, which, was powerful because people could suddenly, open up a loan without having to go to a bank. You just deposit some money, borrow against it. It could take you as little as 60 seconds if you were willing to pay whatever the gas fees were at the time. The one that struck me, though, in the summer of 2019, as I was preparing for these Ethereal conferences and trying to figure out, like, who should we host, like, who should be giving talks, what are the narratives that are going to be interesting in our space, it made sense to me based on my background, having worked in software and demoed lots of software. I was like, I should try this out, because I almost felt like it was insulting that I would like put these founders on a call, ask them to come speak, but then not know anything about what they were building. I just wanted to like be prepared and be able to sort of charm them. And that's where the light switch started to go off for me, where I realized, hey, I can lend. I was lending stable coins and I was earning something like 20% on Compound. And I'll cut it off at this, that the thesis that became very obvious in a short amount of time is that there's this talking point that we are waiting for DeFi, that we are waiting for Ethereum or Web3 for the UX to get better, that it's so shitty that it's not even usable at this point. And that was provably false. I was like, you can learn how to do this. You just need someone to show you, to inform more people that this stuff is usable, and to let them know that they can potentially earn income or passive income doing this. Obviously money is like the best driver to get people to like do something. And that was it. I don't think I ever shut up since the summer of 2019. I started posting on Twitter, like, I'm lending this money, check out, like, here's how I did it. Here's a thread on, at the time it was Token-Sets, all the cool things that you could do to just drop money into basically an automated robot to run a trading strategy. And I think to cap it all off, I didn't have a background working in traditional finance. And so I felt like I was one of the better people to give that perspective, to say, hey, if I can do this, anybody can do this. All you got to do is you need a little technical know-how, and then you need a little bravery to click the button. So that's anyway. Since then, I've been tweeting, making videos, writing a lot, which led to a lot of great opportunities over the last few years, and including working at Zapper the last year, and then more recently, after angel investing in quite a few projects over the past year, I joined my friends at Fourth Revolution Capital, and so we manage $50 million in assets and invest in seed stage to I would say maybe like a Series A, Series B for teams that are building DeFi, NFT, or Web3 related protocols.
That's awesome. I love you taking us through the steps of getting introduced to not just crypto, but DeFi. And I can relate going back. And Token-Sets was actually my intro to DeFi.
That's cool.
Yeah. I was looking into different, I think originally I was looking into like, I don't know, trading bots and stuff like that. And then I found Token-Sets. I thought this is such a cool concept, and really started using that a lot. And DeFi is just so, I try and explain to people if they get into crypto and they want to get in beyond just like holding a token, that to try DeFi, because going back to the narrative you mentioned, when people make the argument and they say, oh, well, crypto doesn't really do anything except, you just hold these coins. And it's like, no, there's like real applications that are incredible for what they do today. And you just have to go experience it. And once you do, you will be fascinated and hooked into this whole industry.
Yeah, it's a technology that so like to break it down in case someone has like never encountered DeFi. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. It means that there is no centralized entity that controls these different finance applications. So a better way to think about it is it's like banking without a bank. Everything is run by, think of it as like automated money software or finance related software. Some of that software is to enable you to be able to trade. Some of it is to lend and borrow. Some of it is for options and insurance or margin trading. Like it can get really complex, especially if you're new to finance. But if you think about the simpler use cases, like, will I be able to borrow a loan in the future using DeFi to buy a home? The answer is absolutely. Like we're already at that point where some are able to do that because they have enough money to put up against the loan and borrow using these applications. But we're moving towards under collateralized lending in the future, which is the way things sort of work in the real world that we all live in. So DeFi, if it is going to replace traditional financial services with automated software, another key component to this is that it is owned by a community, and the community, the way that you own a right to basically say, I want to change or upgrade how this thing works, is you own a token. And so, tokens could almost be likened to, stocks or equities. So, if you think about the big banks, like you can own a piece of the big banks today. But this is truly starting from scratch. And the radical difference between DeFi and the big banks, I'm not trying to paint them in like a negative light, is they have a lot of overhead. In order to run a bank, if you have 10,000 employees, there's a lot of inefficiencies in there, and they're having to pay all these people, whether they work at home or work in an office. So there's just a lot of cost to them doing their business. Versus in DeFi, I give an example like Nexus Mutual is an insurance. It's basically a DeFi insurance, and they only have, I think, 12 employees, and they have now 550 million in active coverage. So they are coming up against some legacy insurance providers, especially some newer ones that have come to market over the last few years. And it's all because they've automated so much of the work with smart contracts on Ethereum, but they also have a community to back them. So I think at this point it was either, I'd have to double check, but I know it was 6,000 or more, maybe it's up to 10,000. If you have 10,000 token holders, those people are willing to help others to learn about your protocol. They're helping to create marketing materials. There's all sorts of marketing that's been created just by the community. Maybe they'll create like a tutorial on how to use a DeFi application. They'll vote on claims, whether or not to pay someone out, whether it's like a valid claim or not. So if you apply that thinking though to all the other DeFi applications, you now have, you have a very recognizable parallel to the software world over the last 20 years, where you see something like WhatsApp, it grew to how many users? 1 billion or something, and they only had like 7 or 8 employees. This is the internet now coming for money. money was never solved by all the innovation in the internet over the last, several decades. So now we're seeing money that is digitally native. That means it has a scarcity. If you think about like Bitcoin's digital gold, the concept of having a digitally scarce native currency to the internet, it means you can do all sorts of cool shit, which means now, like, again, you can lend, you can borrow, you can trade, you can insure. And that's what we're seeing the very beginnings of. It feels like we've made a lot of progress. We now have close to, like, I think 140 billion in assets that are active in DeFi. So that's economic activity of 140 billion that is, moving between all sorts of different peers. We're now at the point though where we're starting to move beyond just the early adopters. We're now going to start to see, I would argue, like a part of the mainstream, and that to me is going to be a tipping point in mass adoption of DeFi.
Ulf, do you realize our audience has been either watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? No, they should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment and turn on notifications. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So go check out the episode description. You can find all that information below. And we have an update on the NFT, don't we?
That's right. We didn't previously mention this, but this NFT for our OG supporter is a one of one. There will only be one of this kind ever minted, and we have a few surprises for the person who purchases it. The link is in the episode description.
And back to the episode. So DeFi Dad, if we can take a step back to the Ethereal events again, someone who's not only attended, but then helped put on these events. Can you maybe explain to our audience a little bit, what are the main benefits? Why would someone want to attend Ethereal? What are they going to get out of it?
Yeah. I think I think we're talking about the community within the crypto community. So that being probably the largest umbrella. And then within that, you have different cryptocurrencies, and like Ethereum being one of the largest, if actually based on developers and economic activity, it's the largest. At the end of the day, like people want to meet other people and have friends that they have things in common with. And so building a finance system from scratch is not easy, and so over the years, I think it's helped to bring these people together, whether it's at an event in real life or whether we're meeting virtually. It really helps to strengthen the community, to strengthen their resolve about what they're building, to keep them focused on the long-term vision. I think for anyone who's new to crypto in 2021, you have to understand that a few years ago, it was very unclear, despite how much many of us believed in this, it was very unclear whether or not this would be successful, whether DeFi could happen, whether when we talk about Web3 applications, just think of music and art and everything else that you can imagine on the internet, but being built as a protocol that is owned by a community that is truly peer-to-peer, that's censorship resistant because it runs on a blockchain that no one can shut down. There were many years there where, again, it was unclear whether this would all succeed. And I think now we're at that point where, thankfully, there's absolutely no question that, I have zero question whether or not Ethereum can continue to build what is the centerpiece of the DeFi economy. There's other blockchains that have really promising futures to add on to that greater DeFi economy. So if you imagine a multi-chain universe where you're hopping from, let's say like I borrow some stable coins on Ethereum against some of my Ether on Aave, and then I move it to Terra and I lend stable coins or earn with those stable coins using Anchor protocol. And I'm earning 20%. And what I just said too requires me to know how these different pieces fit together. I think it's very likely in the future there will be DeFi applications that are hooked up to multiple chains, and they'll just be pushing money around for you because it will be so easy for you to just move that money from one chain to the next. So that future is not far off either. Like we're already seeing like the DeFi community, while the majority of economic activity is still on Ethereum, again, it's not difficult to imagine how much more like a Polygon is growing, Terra, no matter how you classify whatever the economic activity is on BSC. I mean, they have a lot of usage that's grown over the last few years. So anyways, long story short, we are still early, and I think it's really important to start to just understand some of these financial mechanisms. Like that's probably the greatest challenge we have today, is just to educate people on how finance works, because most people in the world don't know how it works. So it's not a problem of DeFi being difficult to understand. It's actually a reflection of the fact that most people don't know how finance works, other than maybe like buying a stock. And so we got to just make sure that everyone's able to actually participate in all of these opportunities in the future.
So what's it like? Like you said a couple of years ago, there's this uncertainty of like, is this all going to work and that kind of thing. And you talked a little bit about focusing on decentralized finance back in 2019, that kind of thing. But even this concept of NFTs, which is a whole nother subject, those existed as of 2017. And I'm sure you were aware of those during that time. But like, what are your thoughts in that position when you're hearing about these things with that uncertainty versus how things have evolved and how much it's all blowing up today?
Yeah, so NFTs have been a really nice surprise over the last few years, how they've been adopted. So if anyone's not familiar with an NFT, it is a non-fungible token, which just means that it is a unique digital asset, like it's like a one of a kind, and you can prove who owns it, of course, thanks to, in this case, Ethereum. You can prove on Ethereum like who owns that. So that's cool. I mean, the question is like, how do you use that? And so early on, we had things like digital pets, which were crypto kitties. Then over the last few years, we saw digital art grow a lot. So you had like early players like Super Rare, which just launched a token coincidentally today. You had OpenSea as like an Amazon type of platform for being able to buy and sell NFTs. And so this went from a very small group of users who were basically trading digital collectibles and digital art. It went from a small group to, I mean, now at this point, I wouldn't say it's fully mainstream, but there are lots of big names that have, entered the community, some of the most notable names that have sort of brought NFTs to mainstream news and have them talking about it is Gary Vaynerchuk got really into NFTs, Mark Cuban, of course. We also have the fact that there was an artist, Beeple, who sold this huge mega piece that was a collection of all of his other digital art pieces for $69 million. So that got a lot of people's attention. Per usual, crypto tends to grow when big money gets people's attention. And whether or not you want to, classify or whether you want to talk about these being bubbles over the years, the takeaway is that the big money always gets more eyeballs on it, and then it attracts at least a number of those people to stay. And so now you have more true believers who are like, hey, this thing is not just a fad. Like, this is something that's here to stay. So in terms of NFTs, I would point out like some of the ideas that Andrew Steinwald put forward. So he has a podcast and newsletter called Zima Red. He was really keen on NFTs long before everyone else a few years ago. And his thesis was that gaming is a humongous industry. I think at the time he wrote that, I don't know, it was like 1 billion people play video games. And so if you're playing a video game, even if you don't have a VR headset, you are building community and talking with others and basically living a life that is digital. And so that's like a very early version of what could be called the metaverse. It's a new universe that essentially represents, it's an alternative to the world we're in right now. It's, natively digital. And this could be like, VR is the best example of this. If you go to a meetup and you use your Oculus headset, like that to me is like, you're in the metaverse. If you play a video game like Fortnite with your friends and you meet other friends there, to me, like that's the metaverse. Like you're building community that is digital first. So my long-winded explanation here is that I think that DeFi and NFTs actually empower the future of us adopting that metaverse. Like, I think that there's no doubt that all of us can benefit from DeFi because it saves you time, it saves you money, and it allows you to do things with your money that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And it's basically, in a nutshell, it's like email for your money. So if you can do all of that in the physical world, that's great, but you do have an alternative. You can go to the bank, or, if you're fortunate enough to live in a country where you can go to a bank and trust them, there is an alternative there. So we have to upend an incumbent that is the banks in order to get you to use it. But if you hop into the metaverse, if you're playing Fortnite, if you are playing Axie Infinity, if you are, in whatever sort of VR setting, if you're in crypto voxels, there's nothing there to support you from a money perspective unless the creator of that enables you to have like fiat on-ramps and off-ramps. So the future is, I do believe, is like an open source metaverse where anyone can hop in. You can connect with anyone around the world. You can work remotely in the metaverse. And in order for that to thrive, you're going to need digital property, which is basically what NFTs are, digital goods. But you're also going to need all the constructs of finance. And so this is, if you believe in that future of Ready Player One, where, more people will choose a higher quality life that is digital first, it's very likely that this is where DeFi, NFTs, Web3, this is where it really is going to thrive, even more so than in the physical world today. There will be no alternative except for you to use what is digital finance in that metaverse.
I think it's so interesting. I guess I could say I consider myself to be like a futurist or a technologist or something like that. So I've always thought towards the future, like what's going to play out in our future and how will things evolve, and the conversation around VR and like, the world, the Ready Player One type of world where one day we all just plug in and we work in this VR place. And I think that people have, considered that a possible reality for a long time, but not really knowing how we will get there beyond, the technology will get us there and it will exist at some point. I think we're in an interesting place where we can start to see what technologies are going to get us there, and the fact that the roles that blockchain will play in having that future become a reality. And some of those pieces are like you just mentioned, DeFi, VR, NFTs, and how they're all going to play this role in what will be likely, I think, a reality in the not so distant future. And it's just so interesting to see it all happening and coming together now. But I'm going to switch gears here and get back to something maybe a little more simple, which is, we've talked a lot about DeFi and like concepts as a whole. But again, for people who are maybe new, maybe they're getting excited at this point. DeFi sounds pretty kick-ass. How do I get into it? Where would people start if you were to tell someone who maybe isn't so technically savvy and they just own a little Ethereum or something like that? Where do they get started?
Yeah, so there's one playlist in particular that I have on my YouTube. So if you go to DeFiDad.com, just look for DeFi for beginners. The playlist is designed for you to basically weave back and forth between little explainer videos, like 2 minutes long, on what's DeFi, what is lending and borrowing mean in DeFi, what's an example of an automated market maker, what qualifies as DeFi. It could be a term that is misused, so it's important you understand why you use a Web3 wallet like MetaMask, where you don't have to give up your email, you don't have to give away your phone number, your address, you don't have to basically submit your real world identity. That's a really good place to go just to start, because there's tutorials in there that will sort of take you back to trying different parts of DeFi. Another one is actually, if you go to tv.zapper.fi. So over the last year, we made a lot of videos through Zapper that we called them, it was called Yield TV, but it was, there's a sub show within Yield TV that was called DeFi Class. So in DeFi Class, I kind of run through, here's how you set up a wallet, which is one of the more important steps. That's probably the hardest thing. We all know if you own Ether on something like Coinbase and you've never held it in, a hardware wallet or something like MetaMask, that's something you're going to need help setting up, so you know how to self-custody. So then now you're 100% in control of your assets, and you have this wallet that basically allows you to go on a browser like Chrome and be able to use a DeFi application so that you can lend money, borrow money, trade, and do things like that. So yeah, DeFiDad.com. Check out the DeFi for Beginners playlist. Another one that I've interwoven some of those videos into that playlist, but tv.zapper.fi has this playlist called DeFi Class. You should subscribe to the Defiant. I mean, they do all sorts of great work and tutorials, and basically, if you find yourself wanting to go further down the rabbit hole to keep up with all the news in the space, I think it's one of the best places to check out. And then the last thing is, part of the reason I worked at Zapper is that it's this dashboard that it abstracts away all the complexity of using DeFi. So once I move, let's say I have some Ether and I move it from Coinbase to a wallet like MetaMask. Now Zapper, it visualizes my money, so it'll show me my portfolio and any tokens that I own, like Ether. But then you can also choose to lend. So that takes, in this case with Ether, it would only take one click. You can choose to trade, so you can trade that Ether for whatever tokens you want, as long as it's on Ethereum. And then you can also become what's called a liquidity provider, which is, just think of it as Zapper will take your Ether and it will split it into a pool of two different tokens, let's say Ether and USDC. And now my money's sitting there and people are trading in between it, and I'm earning trading fees. And then there's all sorts of other concepts like yield farming, where when you lend money, you literally get paid for it. That's part of the reason DeFi has grown so much, is that unlike something like Facebook back in the day, where they got all these new users and those new users just used the software and never actually received any sort of formal payment or compensation for having used it. The difference in DeFi is that these protocols, in most cases, are distributing their token to those who use it. So as I lend more money over a longer period of time on something like Aave or Compound, I'm earning their token. And the token is think of it like a right to vote on the future of that application, that community, that protocol. So that's nuts, because you're basically being paid to participate. Imagine if you didn't just earn an interest rate from your bank. Imagine if your bank said, hey, we would love to pay you, let's pretend it's Bank of America. If you deposit your money, we'll pay you a high interest, which doesn't even exist now. But on top of it, we'll also issue you Bank of America stock, because we want you to be an owner in Bank of America for being a customer. That's how DeFi works. There's no way that the banks are ever going to compete with an alternative bank that runs faster, is easier to use, is open 24/7, and they're giving you ownership of it. So now I'm lending with, let's say, Aave, and I'm receiving more Aave token. Well, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to talk all about Aave to friends, and I'm going to evangelize it and get other people to use it. And so it's this brilliant customer acquisition model that plays to, creating a community-owned bank. And so, this is why Bank of America, Goldman, all of you, you're all going out of business. I have zero question about it. You're going to be trimmed down to 90 to 95% of your staff. There's absolutely no way that their business model is going to survive. The only way it will is if they can lobby enough of regulators and governments to basically work to regulate DeFi out of existence. And even then, I still think you're totally screwed, because you can't shut down Ethereum. You can't shut down other blockchains that will host DeFi, because if it is DeFi, it should be decentralized, and you should have lots of people running the software to prevent any single point of failure to shut off the blockchain. So that's why I think my TLDR here is, if anyone's listening to this and is like, man, this guy won't shut up. The main thing is you need to learn about DeFi sooner, because it is here to stay. It is not just going to be the alternative for finance. It's going to replace the back end of finance, and I think very likely the front end of finance. And it's going to power this future of a metaverse that many people are unfamiliar with. But even if you throw that out, in the physical world that we're talking about, that we live in, that world is not going to be able to compete with email for your money. They are like a horse and buggy, or like the old mail system trying to compete with email. No one tried email and said, I would rather send letters, to my friends. No one tried text messaging and said, what, this just isn't for me. It's so empowering to be able to instantly communicate with someone. Well, the next most powerful thing is to be able to transact with anyone 24/7, and that's why DeFi is here to stay.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to link to some of those things that you were just talking about to help our audience with that educational journey. And speaking of your content, it seems like somewhat recently on your YouTube channel, you've started to focus on interviews called DeFi Talks with DeFi Dad. And I'm curious, first off, what are some of the topics you've covered? And you personally, going from being kind of the front and center educator versus being the host, getting that information out of someone else, which do you prefer, or do you like kind of both scenarios?
So I started interviewing more people, more founders or investors, because the time it takes to make a tutorial, it is just that much more. So I intend to keep creating tutorials, but like I can throw up a live stream very quickly. You know, I can prep in, 30 to 60 minutes and get someone on. Some of the reason I do like these interviews, it's labeled under DeFi Talks with DeFi Dad. The reason I enjoy that is we're able to react more quickly to what's happening in the market. So I'll never have a show really talking about prices, but in the market, there's so much that happens within the DeFi community. So a good example recently is I have been trying to think about topics that just don't get covered as much. And it's just because, like, we are a small community still, and there's niche things that need to still be uncovered. One example of this is there are more tokens now that are launching through DEXs. So Miso by SushiSwap has gotten a lot of it's been more popular lately. It's just started to launch more tokens. But it's on layer 1, and as much as I am a sushi holder, full disclosure, and I love, as much as I love the SushiSwap team, I think we should be launching tokens on layer 2, or we should be planning to launch more tokens on layer 2. So if anyone's unfamiliar with that too, just think of it as like layer 1 for most blockchains, especially Ethereum. There's so much demand to transact to be able to use Ethereum DeFi applications. It's like a highway, and it's very clogged up. So when you build L2s, it's like an elevated highway, and suddenly, you allow people to be able to transact faster and cheaper. So I guess my point is, with all these L2s that are going live, these L2 solutions, I think we should be talking more about how to launch tokens on L2. And I bet Miso by SushiSwap will probably move to L2 very, very soon. So we did an interview recently with Diversify. So they've built the only launch market I know of that's on layer 2. And then yesterday, really off the wall, I got to interview the founder of Alethea.ai. So they take artificial intelligence, and they basically give NFTs a personality, and the NFT then has a unique personality and can speak to you. It can recognize what you're saying. You can literally have an open conversation. So I did that yesterday live with the founder, totally unscripted too. I don't, if people watch it, like, it might look a little scripted, because I was a little nervous as to like, what the hell should I ask this? It's a stoner cat. So stoner cats are an NFT, and they're like they're, I think, going to be a popular TV show, and it was created by or backed. I think it was backed by Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. So
she's one of the producers.
We had the chance to chat to Mac Flavel, who's kind of with CryptoKitties, and then he was behind Stoner Cats as well. So got a little bit.
There you go. Oh, nice. Well, they should go back and listen to this episode. It's a cool concept, and they took one of the Stoner Cats, Reggie, and gave Reggie a personality, and that personality learns based on like current events. And I don't know exactly how all of the AI works. I'm clearly not an expert with that, but I got on, and it was nuts. So I'm talking to an intelligent NFT, an INFT. So this is when we talk about DeFi and NFTs, this is what I mean. And I'm clearly sort of reaching here to bring the future more forward, but the future is that you could have an NFT that literally manages its own digital assets. You might have an NFT that's AI powered, that's better at managing money than other people, and then they're trusting that NFT. And that NFT has a unique identity, which, again, if you think about in the metaverse or on the blockchain with Ethereum, you have this unique identity thanks to the NFT, but now it has a personality and now you can speak with it. So just really, really like crazy sorts of ideas like that. I think if you can understand and appreciate that like these futures are less far off than what you might have originally thought they were, it creates urgency around why you want to learn about DeFi. Again, like the benefits of DeFi today are just, they're huge because you have this ability to earn, in most cases, you earn higher interest as a lender because you don't have 10,000 employees that need to be paid in big bank buildings that, need to, be maintained. Instead, with DeFi, in many cases, you have teams of 10 or 20 software developers, but you have a whole community behind you of thousands of token holders. I mean, God, Aave, I think, has something like 200,000, or maybe I'd have to double check. I know that Uniswap has over 250,000 token holders.
Wow.
So small team, streamlined to be able to develop really powerful software that anyone can access in the world with an internet connection. But meanwhile, has the ownership of a grassroots community who happen to be all over the world as well. Like these are recipes for parabolic growth of DeFi. Like that's why if you go to DeFiPulse.com or DeFi Llama, either one will show you the total value locked, which is really just think about it as like assets under management, how much money has been deposited. And, you look at it and you go, holy cow, like just look at the chart over the last year, how high it's gone. But then you should look back further because there was a time where we were being told DeFi had gone from about 500 million in the summer of 2019. It got to $1 billion by the end of January 2020. So it was almost 6 months. And that was, I remember, when we really started hearing my friends in the Bitcoin community, especially the Bitcoin maxis saying, this is all a bubble, it's all bullshit, it's just Ethereum people recycling their money, they're printing new tokens, and then that's what this is. Well, at 1 billion, I remember I wrote an article for CoinDesk, and I was just trying to say like, this is real, this is, I'm in the community, I'm using all of this, like this isn't money just being recycled. And we jumped from like 1 billion to like 25 billion maybe by the summertime. So it was only like
nuts that year.
It was nuts. Yeah. And now if you look at, depending on what DeFi communities you focus on, I think DeFi Llama has more applications at the moment, which is great because it gives you, I think, an even more accurate picture. You can look at what's on Terra, what's on Polygon, what's on Ethereum, but I just look at it all lumped together and I'm like, holy cow. Oh, Solana too. I keep forgetting Solana. There's a lot of activity happening on Solana. And yeah, you look at those numbers and we've taught ourselves in crypto that when you see numbers continually going up from a price perspective, of course, I have to question like, oh God, like, number can't go up forever. That's not normal. Like, that's just not how the markets behave. That's not how people think. People don't just keep buying and letting a number go up. This is a number based on utility. So it makes sense that we would see more and more people being attracted to this space and using these applications. And so that's to me, I mean, that's one of my favorite websites in the world is the DeFiPulse.com or DeFi Llama. You just can look at the number, and it's crazy to look how far we've come in a few years. The question I try to pose to my friends and family and strangers is, look at where we are now. I mean, we have a very small fraction of the economic activity in the world. I mean, this can easily go another 100x without blinking. But like when we hit 1,000x, don't look back at this and say, oh, I never saw it coming. It's there. It's right in front of you. Everything in DeFi is instantly auditable on chain. You can find all these numbers thanks to some clever websites that have made prettier charts for us to look at. There's no black box. You don't have to wonder how much, like with US dollars, we do have to wonder how much money has been printed. When you look at big banks, despite all that they report to their stockholders, we still have to wonder where certain money has gone. You have to wait for those reports to come out. You don't have to do any of that in DeFi. It's all instantly there. So it's a more transparent way to be able to track growth of DeFi.
It's you're getting me so excited just like thinking about DeFi and its potential. And I think that it's an interesting point you make about price going up and how, it's maybe not natural to think that, it can just keep going up. But that difference that you made about utility in DeFi, and that really when we talk about price going up in DeFi, for sure, it still comes back to like, well, why are people using it? A lot of people are still using it speculatively for investment purposes, but it's still the fact that they can because the tools provide the utility, and therefore we're almost talking more about adoption of those tools because of how they empower the user, which is much different than just saying, oh, well, Bitcoin goes up in price because people buy it. There's a big difference than buying and holding something speculatively and using a platform or an ecosystem of tools that empower the users. So I think that's just an interesting perspective to take. Now, I do want to shift gears back just to one thing because this is so crazy to me. I mean, all our conversations with different guests, we've talked a lot about NFTs and the different use cases for NFTs, which is staggering and mind-boggling to try and even think about once you really start getting outside of the realm of like gaming and collectibles. There's so much more that NFTs can do. And the fact that you just introduced us to like NFTs as AI is just like, what? That's just so crazy to me. To think that one day there might be AI bots that we interact with and they're their own NFTs. Like, what? So
it could be like their
crazy.
own
Thank
personality.
you for that introduction.
I mean, you could even like, there's so many use cases here that we've talked about with Alethea. Like, imagine one day, this is something that does seem farther off to me, but imagine that you can upload your consciousness to some AI, and so now you basically put that consciousness into something that you own, like an NFT. So now suddenly you're able to assign your consciousness to something that's on a censorship resistant, proof of ownership thing, like that's the point. At the end of the day, a blockchain lets you prove that you own something. So if the NFT is a vehicle for us to prove something is one of one, it's unique, like a person, if you can imbue that NFT with your consciousness through artificial intelligence, I mean, you can start to see like these are how pieces are going to come together in the future. This is why like it's exciting just to think about what will be possible when we are living in this metaverse, or think of it as digital first living. Like I don't want to paint it as like the Matrix, like everyone thinks they're going to like hook up they're going to be hooked up to like, with like a thing plugged into the back of their neck. But I mean it in a way that sort of creates a fair, higher quality life for more people. Like we're fortunate that we're able to talk here virtually, and we've got nice, microphones to hear each other. But recently, if anyone's paid attention to the news, or if they listen to this or watch this in the future, there's been such horrible things that you can see are happening in Afghanistan. Like, there's people being killed, but there's also people that are just clearly like living a life in fear. So, throwing that aside, I mean to say that if more people can connect virtually, and be able to derive joy from that and create a stronger community, I mean, you create a more like united world of people. And that to me is why, like, I think VR could be one of those things that creates a higher quality life. And then within that VR, there will be opportunities, I would hope, for people to play to earn, or to earn for doing things that we can't even imagine yet, that are going to be like new sorts of use cases, living in VR. And how are they going to be able to earn money, get paid, be able to put their money to work, allow their money to be lent and earn interest? I think that's where like DeFi kicks in. That's the key to growing wealth, whether you're in the physical world or in the metaverse, is you need to find ways for your money to continue to grow and to be productive. And that DeFi is that on steroids, because you can effortlessly lend money without having to go and file a bunch of paperwork and submit your ID and struggle to identify opportunities, just because it's a community that has so many tools to help you find the right opportunities. So yeah, just a fairer, better world, I think, is really where this metaverse DeFi conversation takes us.
DeFi Dad, this has been such an interesting conversation, fascinating. And what's cool is that while we discuss these like mind-blowing topics, you're able to articulate them in a way that's very digestible, very easy to understand. So I'm sure our listeners will appreciate that. Before we get into the final section, what we wrap up all our interviews with, the same 3-question segment, we haven't talked a little bit about Fourth Revolution Capital and what that's all about. Do you mind just kind of talking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the challenges that I lived through the last few years was that you had all of these like incredible ideas and incredible founders working to bring these to reality, especially with DeFi, and so one of my goals over time was just to educate people, and it's still my number one goal is just to educate people on everything that's happening in the DeFi community, the NFT community, the Web3 community. So yeah, it made sense over the last few years. I think I've been fortunate that, with definitely quite a bit of luck involved, I identified DeFi and got to become an early supporter of it, a vocal supporter of it. So I'm really just trying to use whatever platform I have. My goal is to help others to be able to, make their ideas a reality. So yeah, I joined Fourth Revolution Capital because the four of us were basically wanting to make similar bets on radical ideas in DeFi, NFTs, and Web3. And, our goal now is to continue to back those founders that are not just building the next like sort of copy paste marginal add-on to this space. Like, we're really looking for those that are looking to build like a DeFi world that anyone can have access to. And there's a bunch of cool ideas out there like that have really, I think captured everyone's imagination over the last year. One, we're not invested in this, but I've marveled at what Axie Infinity has done. This concept of like you play a video game, but then you earn ownership in the community, and it's actually helped to provide full-time employment for people in other parts of the world. There's even like I'll call it a guild or a DAO that has grown to lend money to people to get started, so they can start to play and earn and make a living from this. So that's been exciting to sort of piggyback on that. And so anyways, with Fourth Revolution though, like we aim to not just write a check. Like we normally help with token design. We help with the liquidity mining rewards if there is one. To design that and figure out what's going to be the most like fair distribution to the community, what's going to get users to be interested in sticking with us long term, not just farming and dumping tokens. I work on the side of trying to help them frame up what value they bring to the DeFi landscape with like product and content marketing. And then of course we do our best to source more capital to participate in these DeFi applications to sort of bootstrap liquidity. So yeah, I mean, I'd say like, I won't speak for the rest of the team. Like the mission, the mandate, you can read about it at fourthrevolution.capital, but I would say my personal mandate is, invest in the future, invest in what others might have been afraid to allocate capital to. Like, I think those are, that we have one opportunity here to like sort of course correct what has happened with the internet, where all of these very large centralized entities own our data. This is like our only second chance to make it right, where you don't need to submit all of your personal information to use applications. You can just use something like a Web3 wallet like MetaMask, and you can own the tokens that give you exposure to the upside of these community-owned protocols.
If someone believes in the vision of Fourth Revolution, what are there requirements to get involved and be an investor in Fourth Revolution, and what Fourth Revolution's investing in?
Yeah, good point. If anyone is interested in investing in the fund, they should reach out at contact@fourthrevolution.capital. And then for founders, which I think is where more of my focus is as a head of marketing portfolio support, just reach out to me. You can DM me on Twitter if you want, but you could also reach out at that contact@fourthrevolution.capital. So we're really hell-bent on finding those founders. But yes, we would be grateful if anyone reaches out who's interested to invest.
Love it. Well, as I mentioned, DeFi Dad, we like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with the same 3-question segment, which we call You Had Me at Crypto. Ulf's going to ask you those questions.
All right,
Excellent.
DeFi Dad, you ready for these 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
And I got 4 for you. I'm sneaking an extra in.
Okay,
right.
yeah.
So the first question, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Oh man, that's so tough.
You're going to make a lot of enemies and one really good friend right now.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good opportunity to always call out people that are like educating on all these, on everything you need to know. Honestly, I think Anthony Sassano is one of the best writers and communicators and educators. He covers topics that like many would be afraid to cover because they get a little more technical, but then he can speak to you like any human being and strip it down or like dumb down concepts. So Anthony has the daily Gwei. Anthony's been on your show too, I think, right?
Yeah. We had a great chat with Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony Sassano, no question about it. So, but yeah, I'll go with him.
Cool. All right. Second question: what will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
Oh man, the price of Bitcoin. I can tell you the price of Ether will definitely be over 100,000 by then. Actually, I say that. I think probabilistically speaking, and that's not financial advice. No one should follow anything that I'm saying as an investment strategy. But yeah, personally, I think there's the economic activity of Ethereum and EIP 1559 that's like basically like a buyback and burn type program. I can't imagine Ether won't go to over 100,000. I think Bitcoin, whether it's in 10 years or longer, I think Bitcoin goes to 1 million. That's like a magical number everyone seems to fixate on. God, who knows? It could go to 500,000. If we're still in a bull market, who knows? But if we are, like, I think it could still go there. So yeah, no, I'm bullish on both. I think it's impossible not to be at this point.
Will the flippening happen?
That's totally going to happen. And I hold Bitcoin and Ether, so I don't think I have any. Well, I mean, I have some bias because I clearly work full time on Ethereum projects. No, to be just really short about it, I found Bitcoin has gotten boring for me. It got boring a few years ago. The core concept is amazing. I'm not doubting the impact that Bitcoin has had on the world and will continue to have. I just think it's like you can pay people, you can hold it as digital gold. That's kind of like the end of the conversation. Which again, I'm speaking from a place of privilege, so like I'm pretty fortunate to be able to view it in that manner. Like it's been a life raft for people in other parts of the world. But I think why not have those benefits plus all of the other finance applications like stable coins and being able to have lending of those stable coins that earns you high interest. So I've taken I should preface this with what little Bitcoin I had has been tokenized on Ethereum, and I use it now as collateral or use it to lend with DeFi.
All right, here's my extra question. I think I already threw in a couple now, but what will the total value locked in DeFi be 10 years from now?
Oh, way over $1 trillion. Many trillions. God, I wish I had some well-prepared question based on like, if you look at this market cap of these different industries, but like, I just know that a year ago, it was definitely over a year ago. I was saying like, hey, we hit $1 billion. That's awesome. But like, we should be looking for 10 billion. And then we hit 10 billion. And I'm like, the road is to 100 billion now. And I've been blown away how quickly, those numbers have grown. And then I'm just also then simultaneously surprised by how few people have used DeFi. More people have heard about it because it's made it into some like major publications, like Fortune did a cover article on it, and it gets talked about somewhat on CNBC. But oh no, like tens of trillions of dollars by that point. So nice. Yeah, zero doubt.
All right, last question here. What is the most underrated coin or project in crypto?
Oh man, that's a tough one. If I'm thinking more, so I'll comment on more like fundamentally what I think is like underrated versus like, so no one view this as like a token. Actually, I will pick something that doesn't have a token instead then. I want to say one of these layer 2 solutions that has yet to go live. It's so niche for someone to even understand layer 2. And for that reason, if you think about all of the applications on Ethereum that have been built, and then if you look at the applications thriving on like Terra and Polygon and Solana, I think that a layer 2 solution is really going to be a watershed moment for Ethereum. We'll start to find out, like, we will prove how much more economic activity continues to grow on other chains, which I believe it will continue to grow. I just wonder how many founders who might have said, you know what, I'm not sure if I can build this thing on Ethereum yet, so I might use another blockchain. I just wonder how many of those people, how many of those founders are just going to say, well, now I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to build it on Arbitrum. So Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync, Loopring, although I don't know if Loopring is going to have more functionality coming. All of these I think are going to be some of the most like valued, they're going to be some of the most like valued projects in the world. The question is whether they end up having tokens. I don't know if they will. Arbitrum in particular has like a lot of dApps that are ready to launch on it, I guess. So, I would keep my eyes open for this. I don't know whether any of this will be investable in the future, but it's, these are good ones to talk about too, because they don't have a token. So there's nothing really to act on there. Actually, if anything, if you think about that, if they do become successful, they grow that much more economic activity on Ethereum. And I still personally, I view ETH as like an index of all the economic activity on Ethereum. So, for what it's worth, I still think Ethereum is it's come a long way, but I think a lot of people misunderstand like the adoption that is there. So yeah.
Love it. Well, like I said, DeFi Dad, this has been an awesome episode. Thank you so much for joining us on Show Me the Crypto.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.